Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Also, if you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. And like I always say, hit the little bell notification right below this video if you want some of this straight game as soon as I drop it. Um, yeah, I'm gonna wait for some more people to come up in here. Sticky Fingers, what's good? Always a pleasure. Like I said, it's always a pleasure for all of the people who have not subscribed, who like to come in and like participate and listening and also dropping comments from time to time. Very much appreciated. Preem, what's good? Cinematic 18, what's happening? Steve Smith, PR Black, what's happening, ladies and gentlemen? We can wait for a lot of other people to come up in here. Algorithm, go do your thing. Algorithm, like I said, it's very much appreciated. Each and every one of you guys that come through. Like I said, appreciate it. Your boy DELRAY. We're gonna get into it. It's just a couple of days for the Diddy trial to start, and few breaking news items would love to talk about. Said toss a fig, what's good? Natural immunity, what's happening? Tara Redmond, greetings. Steve Smith, he said, yeah, he'll snitch. Who's gonna snitch? Who's gonna snitch? Did he can't tell on nobody. Like I said, yeah. Always a pleasure, natural immunity. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Melanie, what's happening? Welcome. Appreciate you. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, today has been a news breaking day as far as the Diddy situation goes. Floyd Nellum, what's good? What's good? Raise United, what's up? Appreciate you for tuning in. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the news is that Diddy is eager to testify on his own behalf involving the situation with this trafficking case and this racketeering, the RICO case, racketeering and corrupt organizations case that's pending right now. We think we got what, 4 days, 3 days? Yeah, we got a total of 3 days, if you will, and it's gonna be on and popping. Sean P. Diddy Combs, known as Diddy, Brother Love, all of the above, will be on trial for sex trafficking, um, and RICO case. Basically, they say Sean P. Diddy Combs has been keeping a low profile. Like I said, he's been meeting regularly with his attorneys, trying to discuss the case and trying to see what kind of angle that they can come from. But more importantly than that, um, right before the case, uh, this case has started, Diddy has just added some lawyers. He added new lawyers to his team. So Diddy right now is trying to lawyer up. He's trying to, I guess, fortify his defense, if you will. Um, yeah. Um, Xavier R. Donaldson is the new attorney that just basically signed on to Diddy's case. A New York-based attorney basically filed a notice of appearance stating that he would be joining Combs' high-powered legal defense. Um, so this is another lawyer coming on trying to help Diddy uh, win this case. Donaldson received his law degree from Howard University, where Combs studied business prior to dropping out and starting his own music career. Donaldson will join the legal team headed by Mark Anafalo and Tenny Garagos. That's Mark Garagos' daughter, if you will. Um, uh, like I said, I don't know if Mark Garagos is working behind the scenes, you know, telling them, giving them strategy and how to, try to mount some kind of defense as far as this case goes. But not only that, they have Brian Steele. Like I said, Brian Steele was the lawyer who represented Young Thug in his Atlanta RICO case in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? And basically, it's not uncommon to add lawyers in a long and complex case like this, even in the eve of trial. Basically, the prosecution are saying that they have a very, very strong case, right? But more importantly, Sean P. Diddy Combs has an unlimited amount of money. Like I said, when you go back and look at the OJ case, right? What's up, Kevy Kev? You go back and look at the OJ case. OJ had money, but he didn't have the money like Diddy got. You know what I mean? So at this particular point, it's all guns blazing. But I would say when you think about a legal team, as far as the best of the best legal minds in the country, it had never been done like we seen in the OJ trial. Johnny Cochran, Barry Scheck, Alan Dershowitz, Lee. I forgot the other lawyer named Lee. Who got Mark Furman hung up when he cross-examined Mark Furman. So once again, Diddy's hired new lawyers, lawyering up, trying to get it going. And like I say, it's not uncommon to add lawyers in a long, complex case like this, even on the eve of trial, right? Naomi Remini, a California trial lawyer who is not involved in the case, basically says that Combs almost, he has almost unlimited money, and this trial is going to last for weeks. I think a strategy is going to be to basically, like how they did the Young Thug trial, even though Young Thug, his case was a state case, a state RICO case. I think they're gonna drag this out, or try to anyway. I don't know if sometimes the judge don't let that happen, but it's not really up to the judge from that perspective. I mean, he can tell them, hey, speed up, things that are relevant versus not relevant. So I think that's going to be part of the process. And for any reason that the prosecution feel like they're not winning this case, I see them trying to make a deal with Diddy. And I'm gonna tell you what the deal gonna be. The deal's gonna be no jail time, time served, right? And some kind of probation or something like that. You know what I mean? I think the same kind of deal that came across for Young Thug. Like I said, I could be wrong, but I think if the prosecution along the way does not have the right juice or spice, should I say, when they're presenting their evidence as far as to Diddy's alleged guilt, I think once the lawyers start to cross-examine the prosecution's witnesses and then trying to bring on their own character witnesses for Diddy from that perspective, I think that if the prosecution feels like that they're in a bad situation, that they're going to actually try to settle the case some kind of way with some kind of deal for Diddy. Like I said, once again, I could be wrong. But like I don't see them not trying to walk away with nothing, because like I said, with a not guilty verdict, it really looks bad on them. I'm going to tell you another thing that they're talking about that I heard in the news, that is all white females. It is an all white female prosecution team. I think that can work for Diddy instead of against him. If you have any black people on the jury and they feel any kind of way about that, from that perspective, black women, black men, we say, hold on, they trying to, it doesn't feel right. Sometimes people just go rogue and they don't really listen to the evidence no more. They see what they want to see. They see it how they want to see it. And, they basically vote, not guilty or guilty. You know what I mean? So like I said, I don't know how true that is, but from what I understand, I've seen news reports basically stating that the prosecution team that's prosecuting Diddy is a all white female team. And like I said, if the members of the jury are, let's say, any other race other than, Caucasian, or Caucasian too. I mean, like I said, you can have people that can, basically see through the shuffle or whatever, if you want to, call it that. if they see anything, any kind of bias or anything like that, it seems like, they're trying to give Diddy a railroad him in any kind of way. I think that people can start to judge, or vote their consciousness and not really deal with the facts anymore. So when we talk about that, that's the thing that I see most. But like I said, Diddy's added another new lawyer, and for more certainty, he's eager to testify. So that's another thing. So it's not even a question of whether he wants to testify or will he testify. He said he's eager to testify, right? And so once again, you know, in him testifying, if, like I said, the lawyers can ask whatever kind of questions, but I don't think that, you know, since they said that Diddy had all of these people helping him in this RICO case, I don't think that if they cross-examine him cross-examine him, I don't think that they can really trip him up to say anything. Like I said, because, they say they have all of these other people that were involved with this racketeering case, but yet Diddy's the only one in prison. So that's the big question. The $1 million question is, where is all of these other people, right, who were alleged to be involved in this racketeering organization and corrupt organization, and how come nobody else has been locked up? I think the level of charges, like when they charge you with 3 or 4 or 5 different, they charge you with racketeering, sex trafficking, and all of these other things, right? When they do that, they're hoping to get you to take a plea to the lesser, right? I don't know if Diddy, if they have offered him anything. There's been ramblings about that. I don't know if they've offered him a plea. But like I said, I don't see him taking that, because there's a lot of things that come behind him taking some kind of plea agreement, if you will, from that perspective. And so with that being said, yeah, he's eager to testify. I think that's going to be very important in this case. So the lawyers, when you think about the lawyers battling it out, like I said, he just recently tried to file a gag order to try to get Cassie's lawyer, not her lawyer in this case, but her civil lawyer, none of them to be able to say anything, outside in the public, because like I said, lawyers in themselves can sometimes taint the jury, if you will, by saying certain things. So they just filed a motion for that. I don't know if the judge has agreed to that or not, right? But, when you think about it, Cassie's the lead witness. You know what I mean? Cassie, she's the lead witness. Like I said, and she's victim number one, basically is preparing to take the stand by name. She's not going under Jane Doe, like a couple of other females in the case that are going under Jane Doe. But Cassie's going by her real name. From what I understand, somebody said she's pregnant. I'm not sure if she's pregnant or not. They said that she's pregnant. So that might play to the jury and the sympathy overall. But like I said, at the end of the day, she's prepared to testify, and I think she's going to be the first person to testify in this case. And like I said, I don't really know what Cassie really can testify to. Like I said, we've seen the tape. We know the tape is crazy and messed up. We know that's a crime, assault, and all of those other things that involved what went on with that tape. But like I always say, that's a state charge. That was a state charge in Los Angeles, if there would be any charges filed at that particular time. And so that there were no charges filed, I don't really see how that, like I said, once again, it can play towards the emotions of the jurors, if you will. I don't see how that really plays into his innocence or his guilt, unless people just look at that and say, you know what, I want him to be guilty. I seen the tape. I don't like the guy. You know what I mean? A lot of times people do that. But if you have a real conscious jury, a conscious jury, you're going to have some people in and you're going to have some people out. And once again, the worst that can possibly happen is they have a hung jury in the situation like this with a hung jury. And, do they basically want to, because it's like a test run, there would be like a trial for a test run. So if they get a hung jury, then the prosecution can say, well, whether we want to try the case again, right? And basically you're trying the case again with the same witnesses, the same evidence, You're not really allowed to add anything new. And so with that being said, yeah. So if they have some kind of hung jury, and you have some people in and some people out, it's like, what do you do? And that's sometimes how it plays out. Like I said, and we can't see into the courtroom because there are going to be no cameras. But like I said, if it's true that they have an all female white prosecution team, the optics of that is not going to play well. It's not going to play well. It's going to look like, they're playing to the stereotypes. Here we go. Again, they saying that Diddy did X, Y, and Z, when we know for a fact that it was a relationship that he was in with Cassie before all of the other stuff that came out about what their in the bedroom sex life was like. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. What's up, Fatima? So yeah, with that being said, it's like, where does Diddy go from here? What the chat talking about? What the chat talking about? Donald H, how you doing, man? I appreciate you. Yeah, Puff and Delay, he would love a hung jury. Like I said, if you get a hung jury, it's a whole different ball game now. The optics of everything changes. All I can say is this. I like to tell people this. It's the way it's gonna be so hard for them to get some kind of, once they start putting photos up of Cassie and Diddy after the situation happened with the thing in the hotel. If they're allowed to even talk about the situation in the hotel, we don't know if the judge has allowed that yet, right? I don't know if they filed the motion for that to be excluded from the trial. I don't know if the judge has basically ruled on that motion or not. But when you talk about will it be or will it not be that, it remains to be seen. It really truly remains to be seen. So from that perspective, it's like, hey, pictures of Cassie and Diddy at the Met, they're gonna ask like, hey, was he did he kidnap you here? Did he, hold you against your will here on this night? Look like you're holding hands or whatever. You're smiling and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, this is gonna be the big problem. Like I see Cassie being the number one lead witness, if you will, for the government. Like I said, I understand with the tapes. So we saw the tape and everything like that. It seemed like that tape was released strategically from that perspective. But it did happen. But yet and still, she didn't file any kind of charges. Yet and still, it was years before she filed some kind of civil action seeking monetary compensation for the situation. And so with that being said, yeah, it's the Intercontinental Hotel, her fleeing from the room. And like I said, even with the trial going on, you're going to see news media outlets playing that tape again. You know what I mean? For whatever that means, man, and whoever, you got these big news organizations, man, that are controlled by powerful people who are connected to other powerful people, right? That advertise on their networks. If you understand what I'm saying, they're gonna be running that tape 24/7. You can believe that. That you can believe. He said what? He said, did he? Yeah. Like I said, well, I'll give it to you from this. He said the baby old thing, right? The baby old thing. I mean, I understand. Like, yeah, they said. I mean, I didn't see 1,000 bottles or nothing like that. They said that he had a lot of bottles of baby oil. I didn't say it. I didn't see 1,000, but even with the baby oil thing, like, what did that mean? It ain't illegal. Once again, it's not illegal to have baby oil. You know what I mean? So I didn't really understand. I understood the what they said and how they wanted to put that into the context of what was going on and what was happening, right? But my thing was, what was the context of the baby oil? They don't even talk about it no more. People made memes about it, the internet and the whole 9 yards, but we way past that now. It's about to go to trial for what's supposed to be the facts, what's supposed to be the witnesses, what's supposed to be the victims, what's supposed to be the perpetrator and being Diddy, you know? What you say, Kevy Kev? He said Puff will have a prison album. JP Six Gunner, what's happening? Appreciate you. Yeah, so like I said, ladies and gentlemen, Diddy has lawyered up again, man. His new lawyer, Mr. Donaldson, Xavier Donaldson, man, Howard University grad, um, is joining the legal team. And Combs, like I said, jury selection. And see, like I said, most of the people don't even understand. They think trial is coming, right? They don't even understand what's going on. Trial is not coming. On the 5th, they basically begin with jury selection on Monday. So there's no trial really coming as of yet. We won't get to the meat and potatoes of this until about, probably a week after this. They're gonna select the jury, and Diddy pleaded not guilty, and so that's gonna be the most that like I said, I think that's where a lot of money is spent as far as the defending, on people who know how to pick juries, right? This is where the crux of everything that's going to really truly take place and really going to mean something as the jury selection begins. And that's what actually begins on Monday. So they're going to go through a panel of probably 100, 300 people, you know what I mean, and pick the best 12 and a couple of alternates, if you will. And so, we won't really get into the meat and the potatoes of what this means. So for the people that's wondering and thinking that, the trial gonna start Monday, from that perspective, the trial and all of the juicy, tidbits and all of that, that's not gonna happen. The only thing that starts on Monday is basically the jury selection, which is the most important part of the trial. So yeah. What Cab said, what Cab said, it's only 97 people in here, but only 30 likes. It's all good. Like I said, once again, everybody that's listening might not like it, and everybody that like it might not be listening. You know what I mean? Whichever way it go, Kevin Cab, we're gonna still proceed accordingly, right? American Negro News, what's happening? You said, damn, you Rain G4, you said you want some, like I think everybody wants meat and potatoes, right? But they gonna, like I said, I think the most important part to any trial though, man, like I said, if Diddy planning on winning or trying to win this, right? It starts at the jury selection. So when you understand that the jury selection is the most important part to any kind of criminal case or any kind of case, period, civil case or whatever, that the jury and the jury of so-called your peers. And so, like I said, Diddy being the native New Yorker, you know what I mean? Originally from Mount Vernon, played a lot up in Harlem, you know what I mean? We're gonna see what kind of jury that he gets, And so from that perspective, that's gonna be the most important part. Yeah. But they say Diddy's gonna testify, man. He's gonna testify in court. He gonna, despite what everybody, like I said, despite what everybody's saying in regards to what they think gonna happen and all of this, that, and the other, he's in the fight for his life. He's in the fight for his life. Like I said, at the end of the day, yeah, he's in the fight for his life, man. What'd he say? Yeah, hit that like button, hit the share button. Kevin Kev on it, man. I appreciate you. He say you getting into Dr. Law 6, what's happening? Appreciate you. Of course, he called me names. Yeah, man. You, like I said, man, that don't mean nothing. That don't stop nothing, man. Like I said, once again, God is in control. People don't understand when you moving in that vein of things, it doesn't matter. If they're gonna fail, they're gonna fail. Because it's in their destiny to fail. It ain't got nothing to do with what they call you. They could smile in your face and talk behind your back. It wouldn't matter. If it's their destiny to fail, it's their destiny to fail. It can't be on you. It has to be in you. That's what a lot of people don't understand. American Negro News, thank you for the support. I appreciate you. Nah, they say Diddy, he won't have to wear the jailhouse suit. I think he could wear a suit. They gave the instructions. Like I said, all of that has to be decided. Like I said, they basically fought that. They were like, they tried to fight that. Like, no, we need him in the jailhouse stuff. We need him to look like a criminal. We don't need him to look like a CEO. We don't need him to look like that. So, I believe he's going to be wearing a suit. No different than any other trial. Like I said, once again, for a lot of people. Yeah, thank you for the support. Thank you, Fatima. I appreciate you. Now, I don't think his defense can't be as bigger than me. I think his defense is going to be everything was consensual. A lot of the things that the prosecution has already said, that a lot of the things that they saw, the tapes that they have, right, of Diddy, a lot of the stuff was consensual. You know what I mean? What they're trying to argue is that, I guess what Cassie's going to get up there and probably say is, well, there were times that I didn't want to do certain things, that he made me do certain things. You know what I mean? And um is that criminal in a relationship from that perspective, where at the time when she could have filed some kind of charge or something like that, she didn't, just like the situation with the hotel. So that's the thing that's going to really I think resonate with most people, is what Cassie's going to say. I was forced to do this, I was forced to do that, right? But it wasn't like she was like some outside girl and they were dealing with some outside female. She had been in a relationship with Diddy for damn near 10 years, off and on. And like I said, my thing is, more importantly, who are the witnesses going to be for the defense? Like I said, Diddy can call his own witnesses too, about people who were around the relationship. And if, like I said, once again, somebody coming in there and saying that, hey, that I seen Cassie hit Diddy before, you know what I mean, and them fighting and so on and so forth. It was a very volatile relationship. Once again, all relationships are not peachy keen. So that once again, and that how it resonates with the jury. That's why I say on Monday, when the jury selection starts, that's going to be the most important part of the trial. Because if you get a jury that might look favorable to Diddy, then he wins. If it looks unfavorable to him, then he goes to jail. So yeah, they talked about the Justin Bieber thing, but that none of that was true, man. Like I say, you can see the internet, man. Sometimes people just they overdo it. It's the over sensationalism of the lies that people are allowed to tell, and like once again not be held accountable for the lies that they telling. And it's like, it's crazy. I mean, like I said, y'all seen what happened to Reggie the Rat and Gullible John. I like the lies that they told, and it was like, man, you know, um, when you come from behind all of this, you got to stand up as a man. You got to be a man before you anything. I think a lot of people lose that. I think they can hide. You know what I mean? And there is no hiding. You know what I mean? What's in the cards for you is going to be in the cards for you, and it's just that simple. So, like I said, yeah, yeah, Steve Smith, like you say, all for views, man. Well, it's not even, no, it's the First Amendment is freedom of speech, but just watch what you say. You know what I mean? But a lot of times, like, when, like I said, when the Diddy stuff first came out, I'm like, most people like, yeah, they finally, and like I said, Little Rod, his lawyer, Tyrone Blackburn, right? When he sued Diddy in the civil matter, he put a whole lot of people in the lawsuit that he later, once again, which didn't get as much coverage as when he was naming people in the lawsuit, he later apologized to the judge in the court in reference to what he had put in the lawsuit, because some of it was unnecessary. But I understand the sensationalism of trying to get the media to bite on it and run with the report. But like I said, a lot of the stuff that was being said was just straight out fiction, man. It was fiction, and that's the part that's crazy about all of it, because a lot of those people, you don't even see them no more. They don't even do any kind of conversation around this. Like the girl, what's her name, Tisa Tells. You don't really even, I have, her thing used to pop up all the time, and you really don't really hear anything from her no more. Because like I said, once again, it was a lot of sensationalism. It was like, oh, and Diddy, and then and people, then, and I know, and they telling me, oh, it's spooky, spooky, spooky. Boo! Look behind the wall. Ooh, it's ghosts. You know what I mean? And all of that stuff. and that really doesn't, that doesn't last. Like I said, all of the garbage is going to move to the side, right? And the real stuff, the substantive information, is going to be the thing that lasts. Yeah, like you said, natural. I mean, like Jaguar, right? Too. Also, same thing. Like I said, a lot of people don't understand that. And like I said, it's one thing to get, clicks and views and things like that. Uh, when you saying something, and if you don't get a lot of them, you know what I mean? It's still what you saying. If it's supposed to be in the cards for you, it's gonna be in the cards for you. If it's not, then it's not. And you can, keep up the same thing. But it is what it is. Like I said, not knocking nobody's hustle. If you, like I said, if you keeping it real, you trying to be factual, informational, substantive, okay, it's gonna work. People gonna really check for you and say, hey, you know what? This is a competent source of information for everything that you want to be able to understand. It says Shannon Sharp. Yeah, but the sad part about, like, even with the Shannon Sharp, I seen a lady, a lady came out today. They got some other video of this lady. She's a redhead lady, right? And she's talking about something when she dated Shannon Sharp, and it's like, what? Like, like you had a relationship with somebody, it didn't work out. Somebody else got a case, and then here's somebody else come, and it's like, yeah, he did. It's a sick society we in, man. People just, they don't even care no more, and they don't even care no more. Like I said, but once again, even though somebody makes an accusation, yeah, if you get away with a couple of dollars, but that money, ill-gotten money, that money, that's just like anything else. There's karma attached to that money. You know what I mean? And karma don't care about none of that. Yeah. Like I say, Shannon Sharp ain't sharp at all. I did a video on that, man. He ain't really sharp at all. Like I say, it's one thing to have money. It's another thing to be somebody who can really think outside of the money and be able to move effectively and accordingly, right? Um, and like I said, money doesn't make you smarter. It really, truly, honestly reveals who you really are, a lot of times, and who you really aren't. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, if you're thorough because that's who you are. If you're not thorough, then you're just not thorough. Period. And Shannon Sharp, like I said, that offering $10 million. It's like, what? $10 million. My thing is this. This is what I think about the Shannon Sharp situation. I think the girl has more tape. She has tape or something else that she ain't let out yet that Shannon Sharp knows that she has, and it's very unbecoming. You know what I mean? That's what I truly, honestly think about the Shannon Sharp situation. I think that the young lady has something on tape that she hasn't let out yet, and I think Shannon Sharp knows that, because there's no way on God's green earth, just for what we know right now and them role playing and saying certain stuff, that would be worth anywhere near $10 million. So I think that there's something that she has on tape that may be unbecoming in regards to Shannon Sharp. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, once again, I think the people that care and love, Puffy, good, bad, right or wrong, I think gonna stand tall and come testify. You know what I mean? That will Mary J. Blige testify? That's a hard thing to say. That's a hard thing to say. Um, like I said, once again, but the people that were closest to that situation, who would know about the situation, um, my thing is the tapes that they have, and like I said, they might not play those tapes in open court. They might have the jury go to a room and look at the tapes or whatever have you. If the tapes might seem or appear to be incriminating, um, I think they'll go and do that, and then come back and try to decide, like, what they saw or what it is that these tapes actually show. You know what I mean? Because like I said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, the guy Courtney Burgess, along with his attorney Ariel Mitchell, went on News Nation talking about they had tapes. Courtney Burgess had tapes. They wrote the fake book about it. You know what I mean? They did a whole media run. Did a whole media run with this book here, y'all. Remember it was the number one selling book. Remember, this was the number one selling book, Kim's Lost Words, right? It was all fake. and they said it was written by Jamal T. Millwood, which was a Tupac alias that he would use when he checked into hotels. Right? Can you really put your head behind this one right now? Like I said, I did the interview with this one over on the Art of Dialogue. We're gonna check the interview with the guy, Todd. What's his name? Yeah, his name's Todd. Right? So you can go over on Art of Dialogue and check the interview that I did with him. Come to find out, man, all of this information that was in this book was a lie. The book was probably most likely written by some kind of artificial intelligence mechanism, if you will. Like I said, totally false. Amazon yanked the book down. And so when you deal with that and you understand that, man, that's the thing that I saw. It was like a concerted effort, and you kind of like, man, because you don't get media attention just for nothing. Right. Well, no, that's the book. I don't know if the guy he wrote that. He said that we come to find out that Courtney Burgess was behind the book, right? And they claimed that Kim Porter wrote the book, but Kim Porter didn't have no book, had nothing to do with this book. They claimed to have hard drives that belonged to Kim Porter that contained the information that's in this book. And like I said, once again, Diddy filed a lawsuit against Ariel Mitchell and Courtney Burgess for basically a defamation, like a $50 million lawsuit. You see what I'm saying? So when you know the totality of what's been going on around this whole story, it seems like it's a concerted effort coming from somewhere if you really can't put your hand on it. You know what I mean? What'd he say? Yeah, Chris Todd, Steve Smith. There you go. Chris Todd. And that's not even his, the funny part about that is that's not even his real name. So that was another thing that, like I said, that kind of alarmed me, about that whole situation. It's crazy. He said that when we say Rain G4 say Mary J testify, she'll do a song at the end. Yeah, I don't, like I said, at this particular point, I don't even think she'll do a song if she'll testify. Like I said, because a lot of people look at their advisors, and will that hurt their career? You know what I mean? Some people don't really care about that. You would think that people like Faith Evans, Mary J. Blige, who else? But like I said, Diddy never really treated his artists, from what I'm understanding, none of his artists really good. You would have a whole string of people coming and testifying on his behalf, if to be truthful. But like I said, once again, will that hurt their career? Once again, people looking at him like, hey, this person is siding with somebody who's a woman abuser, who's this, who's that, who's all of these other things. So it's a lot of politics involved with that. Say natural to me. No, I mean, like I said, Russell Simmons, the same thing with Russell Simmons. I mean, what did Russell Simmons do? Once again, like I said, y'all, we got to be very careful about the information that we take in. You know what I mean? The other day I just seen a video. A lady, Russell Simmons, was walking down the streets of Times Square, just chilling. Like I said, sometimes, man, you need to get away. People coming and it was the Me Too movement and all of that stuff. And like I said, I feel just as bad for real victims who suffered real crimes, right? From that perspective. But like I said, now you do even to the Jay-Z thing and the story with him and Puffy, and none of it was true. They dropped the case. You know what I mean? You don't hear them talking about that no more. When it came out, it was on every newspaper, on every blog, on every YouTube page, right? But now that the case has been dropped, and it's been dropped against Diddy also, now that the case has been dropped, how much credibility is really in this other information that we're getting, like I said, from the government from that perspective, in dealing with this situation with Diddy? Like I said, we don't know. That's why we sit back and we wait for the trial. You know what I mean? So that's my theory. That's why I always, like I said, you got to reserve judgment. You know what I mean? And remain unbiased throughout it all. So, like I said, but we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, Diddy got new lawyers on the team. Couple of days, they're going to start the jury selection. On the 5th, they start the jury selection. And we just going to see where this is going to go, man. If it, like I said, once again, if it does not look good, for the prosecution, they're gonna try to strike a deal. If it does, if the information, once again, and like I said, Diddy's lawyers, you're gonna hear a lot of objections, objections to certain things, hearsay stuff, and all of that, and it's gonna be a lot of that, um, but more importantly, you know, the cross examination of Cassie is going to be pivotal. It's going to be key. I think these other people who I don't know because they're going under Jane Doe, these other witnesses, I don't know who they are. They're going under Jane Doe. Um, I don't think that their information is going to be strong or more believable than Cassie because of the long-term relationship that she had with Puffy. Right? But my thing is, you, how do you take a domestic situation, right, and be in a relationship and turn it into a racketeering and corrupt organizations case is beyond me. I'll never be able to understand that one. You know what I mean? You take, a relationship that might have been volatile, it might have been violent, it might have been abusive in some cases on both parts. Who knows? We've seen what happened with Diddy and what he did to her, so we can look at it from the perspective and the optics that we've seen it from. But how do you take a relationship and turn it to a racketeering and corrupt organizations case is beyond me. And then say that the racketeering and corrupt organizations case is something that involved a whole lot of people when they came out with the original indictment. They named a whole bunch of other people in that case, or that was supposed to be involved or facilitated in making those things happen. All of these things that they're alleging, and the only person that get locked up is Diddy. That's the thing that I question. Not whether Diddy's innocent or Diddy's guilty. I'm looking at the facts and what they said. Okay, all of these people, but he's the only one locked up. So where's the rest of the people that helped facilitate and that were complicit in the RICO case? Is the thing that I look at. So yeah, Fatima, like you said, they got Brian Steele aboard. Like I said, and he's a great attorney. That's what I'm saying. Like I said, it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, I've always been a sucker for a great, you know, movie involving lawyers and things like that. Like the Pelican Brief and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's always good to see because, like I said, you see people who who think outside the box, if you will, and yeah. So we're gonna see what happens with this. So yes, like yeah, you talking about R. Kelly? Yeah. The R. Kelly situation was sad in itself, man. So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I won't bore you with theatrics, but like I said, yeah, that's what's going on. That's how it's going down. Um, yeah, and like I said, they also talked about, and this was another story, like I said, that came out, right? Um, this was another story that came out. Basically, they said that Diddy turned down a deal with the government, if you will. They offered him some kind of deal. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's true or not. Like I said, there's a lot of rumors, a lot of people who want to be right. You know what I mean? They say Diddy versus the federal government on the menu, but it was almost derailed. They say May 1st, Diddy officially, they said on May 1st, Diddy officially turned down a plea deal offered by the feds. Basically, don't know if it's true, right? And who reported that, but that's what they said. So, but I wouldn't expect anything more because if he took a plea deal, they would probably want him to register as all of these other kind of things that he probably wouldn't want. You know what I mean? But like I said, if the trial is going in a direction that the prosecution feel like they can't win, it's almost inevitable a lot of times that they'll strike a deal. And like I said, and they'll take the deal where Diddy on probation, um, time served, and like I said, uh, some kind of they would want him to admit to things, but I really don't think he'd want to do that. You know what I mean? It all depends on where he's at. Like I said, if you feel like, you know what, I just want to get this shit over with, you know what I mean, and be done. He might admit to certain things, but if not, it will be a slippery slope as how to some kind of deal would work out. So But yeah, like I said, your boy Delray. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for sharing and giving me your time. I appreciate you. Straight gang.